All right, so you've got a new machine and you need some basic end user training. My name is Phil. Today we're going to go over one of our most common devices. This is a 50-page a minute color machine. Just the basics of, if I'm a new user and I want to interact with this device, what do I need to know about to make it function as properly as possible? So we're first going to go over the mainframe hardware components of the device, then we'll talk a little bit about the screen here in a second. First and foremost, we're going to go left to right, top to bottom. We're going to start with what's called a staple finisher. Now there are a couple different configurations you might experience when you get a device like this. The first one that you're seeing here is called a 4,000 sheet finisher. What that means is as you're printing and stapling, there can be up to 4,000 sheets on that exit tray. As you open this door, you'll notice a couple of moving components and a couple of fixed elements. The first one here I'm going to talk about is your punch chad catcher. So this will fill up over time as you're punching paper. This may or may not have chads in it. As you can see, it's empty right now. Anytime that does get to a full position, you will have to empty that, which just can be dumped in a normal trash can and put back in place. The second thing I want to draw your attention to is a staple cartridge. Now each one of these sleeves hold 5,000 staples. It will empty over time, and when it does empty, don't throw this whole thing away. You'll actually just create a new insert that goes in here. It can be in a box of 3 of those, which has 15,000 staples total, and at any given point, the machine may tell you you're out, at which point it's a very simple change. As you move to the top of the device, you have a document feeder. Our standard issue is 320 sheets. It's a dual scan feeder, which means it catches both sides at one time. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the functions on how to use it, as well as how to keep it clean. You'll take your original anytime you want to make a scan or a copy, put that in the document feeder face up. So the font on that page needs to be facing upward, and when you see the blue light, it'll indicate that you're ready to go. In the event you do make a copy and you forgot that there's a paper clip or a staple in that document, this is where the jam's most likely to occur. If you open this up, the screen on the device will actually tell you where the jam is happening. A secondary position that may happen is right here below the document feeder itself. This is actually the scan pass, so the page will pull down, come through this slit area, and then exit out the backside. So anytime you do get dirty copies or it looks like your scans have litter in the background, you'll want to use your microfiber towel that comes with the device. You can open this up and just clean your slit glass at any given point. If you are making a copy or scan from the scan bed itself, your point of origin off the glass is in your top left-hand corner. As we move to the right side of the machine, a couple things I want to draw your attention to. This is the main fusing system. So every copier is a toner-based model, which means it's using a heat-based technology, which is caused by a fuser, which we'll get into paper here in just a minute. But as you make more copies and prints, this does heat up. So I would always caution somebody if they're using this device to make sure that they do let it cool down before they try and put their hands in there to remove a jam or a paper complication of some sort. If you don't feel comfortable with that, always call our number on the front or place a service call and our technician can come out and help you. There are several key elements in here that you will be able to see. The screen will tell you where the jam is occurring and what levers to pull or move in order to clear that. But when you do get to a point where you're ready to close this back up, give it a firm shove and it'll close. This is also in the same area where your bypass tray is, or what we might call multi-purpose tray. It's abbreviated as MP on the actual device itself. This is where you're a great feeding mechanism for envelopes, if you're still using transparencies, letterhead, or even labels. The reason for this is every piece of paper that has to pull out of these bottom trays makes 2 turns before it gets to a feeding position. Out of the bypass or multi-purpose tray, the paper only has to turn once. So it cuts down on jams or the potential for jams when you're using odd stock. One key element, just like the document feeder here, but the exact opposite, is you'll notice the couple of graphics on the side. Any paper you're going to print on or pre-printed material from the bypass tray, always make sure it's face down. So an envelope, face down, letterhead, face down, pre-printed labels, face down. And again, this will expand up to an 11 by 17 or 12 by 18 feeding position as well. As we move to the front of the device, a couple things I want to draw your attention to. We'll get to the screen in a second. You do have a main power switch just below the touch panel. This is where you can power the device on and off. In the event that you don't have to do that, it does go to sleep after a period of inactivity. Coming across just from the power button, if you do have that finishing unit over there, there's a transfer bridge or a transfer unit we call it that actually takes the paper from its printed position and will transfer it to the exit, at which point it's being punched or stapled. This is also an area where things can jam. So one of the things I do want to caution a user about is if it's a 40 or 50, a 60 or 70 page a minute device, that means that paper is traveling really closely together. In the event a jam occurs, just keep in mind that paper will back up in the feeding path the entire way. So if there's one jam here, keep in mind there are probably 4 or 5 or 6 pieces of paper behind that that will also need to get cleared out before the job can be resumed. You'll notice the white tag on the front here, we call these our ID tags. There's a 5-digit alphanumeric number on there. For example, in this case, we have AE940. There's a QR code, a phone number, and our website. Those are all 3 easy and convenient ways you can place a service call. Every device we send into the field has a maintenance contract attached to it. That maintenance contract provides you with all your parts, labor, and supplies. So don't ever hesitate us if you are in a bind to be able to contact us, because it is a part of your agreement. Just behind that, it will say magic door number 1. Are the 4 toner compartments required to produce color images? There's a yellow, cyan, magenta, and black. One of the neat provisions that AOT provides is a proactive monitoring of each one of those consumables, and at any point one of those reaches a 30% threshold, the machine automatically places an order for itself, at which point our dispatch receives that, fulfills the order the same day, and it arrives at your next UPS shipment. Now, when you do open this door, if the toner level is low, it does not necessarily mean that the door will be open to be able to replace that toner cartridge. And the reason for that is for environmental reasons as well as productivity and cost savings. In the event that these got low, Kyocera actually did a study and realized the majority of toner cartridges were being thrown out with 20 or 30% left. We want to try and make sustainable practices as it involves replacing toner. So this door will not actually open for replacement until the cartridge reaches 0. But with the proactivity of toner being shipped at 30%, you'll be confident and knowledgeable that you'll always have on hand and in stock what you're actually needing. Now, one of the things people may or may not know about is something called a waste toner bottle, which is behind this small door here. There's an interesting element to this. Think of this like an old vacuum bag. When you used to vacuum, that bag inside the vacuum would fill up. If it ever got to a position of being completely full, it would begin to throw the trash back out on the carpet, and it wouldn't actually pick anything else up. This functions the same way for a copier. As we talked about earlier, this is a heat-based technology where molecules of toner are being fused to the page. Not every molecule actually adheres to the document, which means there's a vacuum inside the device that sucks the waste out of the air. As that waste is sucked out of the air, it's dropped into this waste bottle. Like your vacuum bag, it fills up over time. When this is full, the machine will not operate. You'll start to see symptoms of that in dirty copies or dirty prints as they start to exit the machine. So every time you replace your black toner cartridge here, obviously if it's empty and needs to be replaced. You'll pull the empty one out and put it in place of the current waste toner bottle. That will help ensure that the device always has an empty bottle and you can continue printing. In the event you forget that it has that dual use, we do have extra waste toner bottles you can have sent from our dispatch office as well. Tray configurations, you have 4 paper sources exhibited here. There are a couple different ways you can configure these trays, but in this example we have 2 500 sheet at the top, and we have 2 what we call large capacity trays at the bottom. These are fixed to letter size paper, 8.5 by 11 up to 3,000 sheets. And these top 2 trays, these are 500 sheet trays. These are adjustable, so you can drop this back to a ledger size here, or in tray 2 up to legal size there, up to ledger size here in tray 2. One thing I do want to make sure that you're aware of is when you are putting paper in here, please don't leave the guides back and away from the paper. This is like the seat belt to the paper tray. If I don't have that locked in, when this machine starts to feed, it will create a lot of jams and complications. You want to make sure it's butted up tight against the side of the tray, and make sure these guides are neatly and freshly pressed against the documents themselves. All right, so we've gone over the physical elements of the device. Let's talk a little bit about the touch panel. 99% of this stuff you will not have to interact with on a consistent basis, but we do want to make sure you're aware of at least some of the primary functions. The first tab we're going to talk about is copy. Obviously, it's self-explanatory. When I do get into this, I want you to realize that, hey, this might be a little bit overwhelming. Everything is tab-driven on the left-hand side. Think of these like web browsing pages. So we have quick setup, and then there are a bunch of different ones that are regarding paper, regarding image quality, or advanced setup. 99% of what you do is going to be involved in the quick setup tab. There are 6 actual icons we can interact with here. When we do put our original in the document feeder, it's going to automatically match that with a corresponding paper tray, so we don't have to make any selection here. If we did have a special stock we do want to select, say out of the multi-purpose tray, that's where we'd come over here and actually make that selection. If I want to change the paper type, this would also be where it happens, where I go in and I select the type. You can see the media type here. It's selected as plain. You won't have to know the weight of the paper, but it is important to make sure that you're actually changing that to a cardstock, maybe a heavy or an envelope. In this case, we'll use cardstock as an example. That way the machine knows that when I've selected that paper type, it actually heats up to a different temperature. If you've ever baked or cooked anything, this is the science of heat. If you try and make it cook faster by doing it a shorter period of time at a higher temperature, you won't get the right outcome. Fusing technology with toner works the exact same way. In order to get the right print to come out and to avoid jams, registering the correct media is important. So make sure that you're doing that if you are using anything other than plain paper. Black and white and color, we default everything to black and white, but I do want to draw your attention to two different options here. You have auto color and full color. What is the difference between these two? Auto color, if I selected that, would mean if I had a stack of 10 pages here, 2 of them are color and the other 8 are black and white. When it reproduces that copy, it will recognize that only 2 are color and the other 8 are black and white. If I select the full color option, it will believe that all 10 of my originals are color documents that it needs to reproduce in a color fashion. That's not a big deal other than the fact that it does cost you more to reproduce that color. The next tab we have combined. This is really helpful if you are storing documents in a physical format. It gives you the ability to shrink 4 original size 8.5 by 11s into 4 quadrants on one page. So it will create a thumbnail of each one of those images and put one in each of the 4 quadrants. One-sided to two-sided or simplex to duplex. The first number or the first indicator on this is the original. So is the original one-sided or two-sided? And do I want my copy is the second one? Do I want my copy to be one-sided or two-sided as well? And then finally, our 6th tab here in this category is finishing. Finishing is a fancy term for stapling. Depending on the configuration of your machine, you may be able to staple, you may be able to hole punch, or you may be able to make booklets. For the example we're exhibiting here, let's just select the top left-hand staple. If we move to the right, I have a keypad here which I can enter a certain number of copies that I'd like of this. And if I do have that completed, I can hit that, the enter button. And then once I've made that enter clear, I can hit start and begin that copying function. The second tab in our functions here is the send tab. This is a fancy term for scan. A lot of these are going to be wash, rinse, and repeat, what we just saw from the copy screen, but I do want to make you aware of a couple settings that are important to know about. When you do hit that, it will automatically bring up your address book. Our technicians will make sure to program each and every address that you'd like to have existing in your address book, and you can either use this by a simple screen and scroll. You can hit any of these tab delineated alphabets up here, or you can search by function name. In this case, we're going to select Matt's email address. When I've done that, I hit OK. Now that the destination is selected, the only other thing I have to do is change any settings here at the bottom that I may or may not want. It's defaulted to PDF. It will always capture a 300 DPI, which is a pretty standard issue. Everything in scanning is defaulted to auto color. So if there is color in the original, it will reproduce that in the scan. It does not cost you anything more. All it simply does is create a slightly larger file size. Custom box, some people would refer to this as a secure print. If I'm a user that has sensitive documentation or things that only I should be able to see, custom box gives me the ability to print directly to my box. I can have that password or passcode protected. So the device will actually receive the print data, it will process the job and hold it in my box until I actually walk up to release it. That does not cost the customer anything to be able to do so, but it is something our technicians would help you set up from the beginning. A couple of other things we'll draw your attention to here and then we'll conclude for today. At the top right-hand corner here, you do have a visual of your toner levels. Again, your cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, given the fact this is a color device. Energy saver will drop into that energy save mode without your command. And then if you do have a process where you're getting used to everything on this machine, you're not quite sure what you've done, if you want to clear it back out to factory defaults and start over, just hit the reset button and it will restore the original factory position of each one of these functions. If you're familiar with a cell phone, nowadays there's usually a home button at the bottom. This home button will also bring you back to that as well.